Today on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup coming up here in Week 10 of this 2021 college football season. And it'll be over the Michigan State Spartans and the Purdue Boilermakers. Huge matchup for both these teams heading into Week 10. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Michigan State is now ranked third in the nation, according to the first edition of the College Football Playoff rankings. So Spartans are a top 3 football team right now, as the only undefeated team in the Big Ten at 8-0. They beat Michigan in their last game 37-33. Obviously, a huge win. Michigan was an undefeated team as well heading into that matchup. And, I mean, the Spartans, that is a good football team. They are solid. They've won a couple of big games, and certainly this month of November is going to be crucial for them, especially that Ohio State game coming up. Ohio State and Michigan State, basically a Big Ten championship playing game for the winner of that game. So, yeah, for Michigan State, they're 8-0 right now with an 8-game winning streak. And as for Purdue, this team has been the big dark horse in the Big Ten. That's why this is such an interesting matchup here, is because, I mean, if you don't remember, Purdue beat the number 2 team in the nation at one point this season with Iowa on the road. They beat them, and they beat Nebraska last week 28-23. Lost to Wisconsin in between the Nebraska and Iowa games. But this Purdue team is 5-3. And the thing is about this Purdue team is they play extremely well on the road. It's kind of a weird trend for them, but I mean, they've played great on the road, but for home games, kind of a different story. They have not played as well home, but we'll get into more about that in just a little bit. But yeah, Purdue 5-3 heading into this matchup with a 1-game winning streak. Game will be on Saturday, November 6th in West Lafayette, Indiana. So Purdue being the home team here, it'll be an afternoon game, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time is the kickoff time for this matchup. Spread currently has Michigan State by 3, which it expected to be a bit of a wider spread, considering Michigan State's ranked 3rd and Purdue is unranked. But overall, I mean, it's kind of expected. Michigan State's played a lot of close games this season. Over/under is 54 currently, and your FPI is going Michigan State 60.7%. So Spartans are favorite in this matchup, although it's by a small amount, that's for sure. Series history, Michigan State leads at 36-28. So overall, surprisingly, we've seen a pretty split series with wins between these two teams in this matchup. Win streak, though, Michigan State has dominated in recent history. They've won 8 straight games in this series. The last time Purdue won and the last time they beat Michigan State was in 2006. So it's been a long time since Purdue was able to knock off the Spartans. But certainly it's a possibility in this matchup, considering Purdue's actually had a pretty good year. Like, this team could get up to 7 or 8 wins for sure. So, I mean, that's definitely within reach for the Boilermakers still yet in this 2021 season. Here's your stat comparison. Michigan State's got 34 points per game, 20 points allowed, 244 pass yards a game, 200 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 300 passing, 124 rushing. And that 200 rush yards per game, that's almost entirely Kenneth Walker. He has been outstanding for this football team all season. Who would have seen that coming? I mean, he's a Heisman contender, very real Heisman contender, by the way. I mean, the way that he played against Michigan and led them to a huge win, I mean, he is one of the best players in the nation for sure. As for Purdue, 22 points per game, 17 points allowed, so lots of low-scoring games for Purdue this season. 307 pass yards a game, heavy passing offense, 79 rush yards a game, and then for yards allowed, 174 passing, and then 139 for rushing. So, obviously, the thing that stands up for Michigan State here, though, as well as the rush yards per game, is their yards allowed for passing. 300 pass yards allowed per game this season so far. So, obviously, that secondary isn't the strongest part of this football team. Apparently, I think they're a bit injured in that area as well, so that kind of makes sense. But overall, yeah, statistically, Michigan State, though, is one of the best teams in the nation. If you're looking at their offense, offensively, they've been great. Defensively, they've been good on defense as well, certainly better than we expected in the preseason. Recent matchups for both these teams, Michigan State, of course, beat Wolverines 37-33, beat Indiana 20-15, beat Rutgers 31-13, beat Western Kentucky 48-31, and beat Nebraska in overtime 23-20. So obviously a few closer games for Michigan State, but this team has gotten it done each and every game so far to this point, as they are still undefeated. Purdue beat Nebraska 20-23 on the road. Once again, you can see where their home games just have not been anywhere near as good as their road wins. They lost to Wisconsin 13-30, lost to Minnesota 13-20, beat Illinois by only 4, 13-9, also at home. But of course, they beat Iowa 24-7, completely shut down the Hawkeyes in that game, and Iowa just has not been the same team ever since that game, as they just got beat up by Wisconsin last week. So obviously, Iowa being the number 2 team in the nation at the time, that was quite a win for Purdue. They even got into the rankings for, I believe that's week 8 against Wisconsin. So yeah, Purdue, this is a good football team. Do not sleep on this team if you're a Sparty fan. Some key points here: Michigan State's 8-0, still undefeated. Only undefeated team in the Big Ten. That's also a huge surprise. Who would have seen that coming in the preseason? Michigan State being the only undefeated team to make it to November. They've allowed a lot of passing yards, definitely something to watch out for, but Kenneth Walker is a front runner for Heisman right now, especially for me. I mean, I think Kenneth Walker would probably be my Heisman vote right now just because of how impactful of a player he's been for Michigan State. And I mean, he rushed for several touchdowns against Michigan, and I mean, he's been such a huge player for this offense all season long. Purdue, they've been the big dark horse in the Big Ten all season. They've pulled a couple of big wins off, and they haven't performed as well in home games, though. Once again, kind of a weird stat line there, but Purdue's played better on the road versus at home. And Purdue team is incredibly inconsistent. They tend to play to the level of who they're playing. So obviously, when they played Illinois, they only scored 13 points against Illinois. And of course, when they played Wisconsin or Nebraska, I mean, they beat Nebraska. That was a solid win. But of course, when they beat Iowa, they were looking like one of the best teams in the nation. So Purdue, this team can either play outstanding or play terrible. It's just a matter of what team we get for this matchup here in Week 10. But that being said, let's get to the prediction here for Michigan State and Purdue. I'm going to go Spartans here, but in a close one, 24-20. I'm also going to say it's going to be more of a lower scoring matchup too. Some people may not expect that. Your over-under is 54. I'm taking the under by a significant amount. I think we see more of a lower scoring game here, especially in the first half. I think it's back and forth, and some people may not expect that, but I think for Michigan State right now, Kenneth Walker, I mean, he'll be an impact player in this game for sure, but I do think we do stay under that 54 right now. I've got Michigan State covering the 3 points as well. That's definitely a dangerous spread. Right now I'm going with Michigan State to cover, but certainly, I mean, if Purdue gets one more field goal with my score, I mean, it's 24-23. So, win probability, Michigan State 55%. So, I expect it to be a close game. I could see both teams winning this game, and it would be quite an upset for Purdue. I mean, quite a year for Purdue. Imagine if they knocked off the number 2 and number 3 teams in the nation in the same season. I mean, it's definitely possible, but I think Michigan State pulls it out in the end in a close one. They've played a lot of close games this season, so I don't see it being a huge, massive blowout, especially against a talented Purdue team. But Michigan State gets it done. They'll move to 9-0, and they'll win this game 24-20. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you later.